What is up, you guys? For today's video, we're going to be trying out the new Morphe Live-In Color Palette, and girl, let me tell you, I am so beyond excited for this palette. Seriously, like when I first originally saw like the promo images, I just knew I had to have it. And I'm just gonna warn you right now, my voice is cracking really bad because I do have a sore throat. So if I sound a little weird, I'm sorry, I can't help it. But like that color story though, like, ooh girl, like I just cannot get over how beautiful and vibrant it is. So I cannot wait to share with you guys the look of that we are going to be creating today. I'm hoping to do something like super rainbow and super fun for Pride. And before we get into it, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below, and if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram account is @lethal_kitten. So off camera, I did already prime my eyelids and set that with a skin tone colored eyeshadow, and the first shade that we are going to be going into is called Sunlight, which is a matte yellow shade. And then with my Luxie 229 tapered blending brush, I'm just going to be applying this into the inner kind of third of my eye. I'm focusing it into the crease and then doing little circular motions to blend it upwards towards my brow. But seriously though, isn't this yellow so pretty? It's a primary yellow, which is my all-time favorite shade. It makes it so much easier to pair with other colors. And I also want to mention before we jump any further into this video that I had an allergic reaction a couple of days ago. That's why my mouth area is super red. So if you're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with your face? That's what's wrong with it. I tried out a new skincare item, and unfortunately I have very sensitive skin and also extremely bad nut allergies. So one of the two kind of like caused this, which is really unfortunate. But you know, for a while there, I was like, I'm not gonna film. I'm not really confident in my skin looking like this on camera. And then I was like, why does it matter? I can't sit here and tell you guys to be confident in yourself if I'm not confident with myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna film anyways. I really want to use this palette, so that's what we're doing. So once you have that applied, the next shade that we are going to go into is this beautiful minty shade called Art, and I'm going to go in with a different Luxie 229 this time. And then with this shade, I'm going to be applying it to the outer half of my eye and also using it to round out my outer V. I'm also making sure that I have a gap between the blue and the yellow. I do not want them to mix at this point. And when I'm blending it upwards, I'm also doing like little circular motions. I will say though, this shade is extremely light. Definitely needs to be built up a little bit. So once you have that done, the next shade that we are going to go into is called Pride. It is a beautiful kind of like creamsicle matte orange shade. And then with this shade, I'm going to be applying it into the inner half of my eye where the yellow is. I do not want it to mix in with the blue at all though. So what I'm doing is I'm placing the color right into my crease really heavily, and then I'm doing little circular motions to blend it into that yellow shade, to also bring it up just a little bit. I will say though, with this orange shade, I was definitely expecting it to be a little bit more on the peachy side, at least like from looking at it in the pan. But once applied, it's actually really pretty, kind of like, it's kind of like a yellowy orange. It's not like that like bright like orange, but either way though, it's a really beautiful shade. I know this is going to sound like super weird, but the next shade that we are going to go into is called Peace. It is kind of like almost like a satin kind of blue, and I'm going to go in with the Sigma E45 taper blending brush. And again, with this blue shade, I'm going to be applying it into the crease on the side with the blue. I'm assuming since I am using a fluffy brush that it will knock off some of that shimmer and make it more of like a satin when applied. I'm just doing like little circular motions in my crease to blend it up. And then with this shade too, I am just kind of building it up a little bit just so we can match that depth that we have in the inner half of the eye. And also when you are applying this, you really want to make sure that you do not mix it in with that orange, because blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel and it'll make this ugly ass brown shade that we do not want. So looking at like the color story of this palette, like trying to figure out like what kind of look I'm going to do, I have noticed that there is no matte blue shade other than that like minty one that we used in the beginning. Otherwise, all the rest of them have a shimmer to them, which is really kind of hard to like figure out like what kind of look you're going to do, because there is a matte kind of like true yellow shade and there's also a matte like red shade. So I'm actually surprised that the blue isn't matte either, but either way though, I did get it to look pretty matte when I applied it with a kind of like fluffy brush. It knocked off some of that like shimmer in it. But either way though, that is one color I would have really loved to see in this palette. One of the shades that I'm like super curious about is this matte red shade called Life, so we are going to go in with that real quick with a Morphe M507 brush. Red, in my opinion, is one of those shades that's just like really weird. It can either be kind of pink or it can be kind of like more on the brown side. And with this one, I'm just going to be applying it again into my crease. And I'm like really kind of like pressing it in there and then doing little circular motions to blend it into that orange. And the next shade that we are going to go into is called Truth, which is a deep matte purple shade, and I'm going to go in with a different Sigma E45 tapered blending brush. Now this is one of those shades that can either like make or break our look. I am really hoping that this shade works out though, because it looks so pretty in the pan. And I'm just going to take this deep matte purple shade and apply it into my crease on the outer half of my eye, and also use it to round out my outer V. And I'm just doing little circular motions to blend it in with that blue. So far, I'm actually really enjoying this palette. Like, the colors are just so rich and vibrant, but like, ooh, I really love the color of that one. Like, that one is gorgeous. And to help me blend the edges of that, I'm just going to take whatever is left on this Sigma E45 that we had pieced on, and I'm just going to start doing little circular motions around that harsh line, just to help it kind of diffuse and give us a really nice gradient. And again, you really want to make sure that you are keeping the orange away from the blue. But I mean, like, that blended out just so nice and so quick. Like seriously, like, look at that. It looks so pretty. The next shade that we are going to go into is this beautiful hot pink shade called Sexuality. Every time that I open up this palette, this one always catches my eye. So before we apply the shade, I am going to be using a Luxie 227 tapered blending brush. It's one of those like blending brushes that's like kind of like fatter on one side and then pinched on the other. And what I'm going to be doing is taking this brush kind of like the long way, and then I'm going to be applying this pink right in between the orange and the blue. And I'm doing back and forth motions right on that harsh line in between the two colors to blend them together. You don't want to go like the whole way either, you just want to keep this color focused right in between the two. And I'm not doing any circular motions, I'm only doing back and forth. But yeah, so here's where I'm at right now with the look, and seriously, I am having so much fun with this palette. It's just so beautiful and so colorful and truly just a really awesome palette so far. And then with that said though, off camera, I'm just going to cut my crease using my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the shade Fair. So here's where I'm at right now after cutting the crease, and the next shade that we are going to go into is the matte white in the palette called Milk. And then with this little BH Cosmetics flat shader brush, I'm just going to be using Milk to set my concealer. So once you have Milk applied, the next shade that we are going to go into is called Make Magic. It's a beautiful kind of like seafoam green type of shade. When doing this type of look, normally I would put like a light lavender in the outer V area over in here, but I thought it would be really fun just to kind of like mix it up a little bit. So I'm just going to take this shade and start packing it in my outer V. I'm really like pressing it in as well. That shade is definitely one of those ones that you just have to build up a little bit to get it to look like it does in the pan. And then I'm just going to take whatever is left in that Sigma E45 that had the dark blue on it, and I'm going to start like flicking it inwards just to blend in that aqua shade a little bit better. So when I was trying to blend out Make Magic in my outer V and just get it like a little bit more blended with that darker shade, it would literally like just like dust off. So what I am doing right now is going into this shade called Parade. It's like a matte aquamarine shade, and I'm literally just packing it in the same spot. And this one is holding so much better. But yeah, so here's where I'm at right now with the look, and so far it is turning out so cool. And then off camera, I'm just going to apply my foundation and all of that. So here's where I'm at right now with the look, and then for the lower lash line, I'm going to go in with this Sleek Makeup Intense Waterline Eyeliner in the shade Zodiac Black. If you have never tried this one, it actually stays on the upper waterline so well. And I'm just going to take this pencil, and then I'm just going to line my waterline underneath my eye. I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit as well, but not too far because we don't want to look like a panda. And then the shadow that we are going to use to smoke out the lower lash line is called Nature. It's a beautiful like matte green shade, and I'm going to go in with this Luxie 231 small tapered blending brush. And then with the shade, I'm just going to use it to help me smoke out the lower lash line. And last but not least, for the inner corner highlight, I'm going to go in with the Ofra Cosmetics Pillow Talk highlighter with this Luxie pencil brush. And then with my brush dampened, I'm just going to pack the shit out of this into my inner corner and also bring it underneath the lower inner tear duct area as well. But I mean, like, girl, like that highlighter, ooh, it is just so blinding and so pretty. It is literally my all-time favorite. But yeah, so here is the finished look using the Morphe Live-In Color Palette, and honestly, I actually had a lot of fun with this palette, and I tried to use as many colors as I could with it. I really wanted to do kind of like a rainbow, kind of like smoky eye, just to kind of mix things up. And with that said though, I do want to share with you guys my thoughts and opinions about this palette. So first things first, I do want to go over the packaging because I thought it was actually really cute. It has a beautiful like little rainbow on here with some like holographic text saying Morphe. And then once you open it up, it actually has a mirror in here, which actually really surprised me because a lot of Morphe palettes do not have a mirror in them, which is fine, but the mirror in here is actually pretty decent sized. And then here are the eyeshadows as well. As for the eyeshadow formula, literally these eyeshadows are so buttery and so pigmented and honestly very vibrant. The only shadows that did give me a little bit of a hard time was this matte like aqua shade down here. If you do decide to use this one, I would highly recommend using it over a white base since it is so pastel. And also this Make Magic shade, I would either use it wet or over like a stickier base since it did kind of give me a little bit of dusting in my outer V area. But I feel like if I would have used maybe like a glitter glue or something a little bit more on the sticky side, I wouldn't have had as many issues. I do want to take a second though to talk about the matte formula because girl, they are so nice. They are so vibrant, pigmented, so easy to work with and blend out. Like girl, I am so impressed with them. Like as you can see, the look that I mostly did today was using the matte shades because honestly the colors of them were so pretty. I really wanted to use them. But I will say though too, they are some of the nicest mattes I have ever used from Morphe. Like I have a lot of Morphe palettes and these mattes are like insanely good. So when it comes down to it, would I recommend this palette, you guys? And honestly, I feel like this palette is amazing for the price. Like seriously, you cannot go wrong with it. Whether you are looking to add like a rainbow kind of colorful palette to your collection, or if you're just looking for a really badass palette for Pride, I feel like you would really enjoy this one. I will say though too, this palette is for a cause because Morphe is donating all the net proceeds of this palette to the Trevor Project, which is really cool that they're doing. So this is definitely not like an influencer collab or anything along those lines. It is definitely a palette for a cause, which I think is really cool. I know a couple of you are going to be curious on this, if I prefer the Live in Color palette or the James Charles palette, and honestly, I actually prefer the Live in Color palette. I find that the colors in this one are just so easy to work with and they're so easy to blend out. And I find that with the James Charles palette, since they are pressed pigments, they're just a little bit more on the finicky side to use. And I really have to always like make sure that I'm using like the right size brushes, the right primer, and all of that. And because of that, I don't always gravitate towards that palette because I don't really like to use things that are finicky for me. And with this other palette from Morphe, the Live in Color one, I actually just really enjoyed the formula. I could just like grab it, go and do as I wanted. I didn't have to sit there like kind of like tapping things in and making sure things were blended. So for me, that's just my preference, but either way though, they're both really nice palettes. I also want to say though too, I don't really want to compare the two palettes since the Live in Color palette is for a charity, the Trevor Project, and the James Charles palette is of course an influencer collaboration with James Charles. So for that reason, I don't really want to compare the two because one of them is for charity and the other one is a collaboration, so I don't feel like they're on the same playing field. And then for those curious, here are the palettes side by side. But yeah, so in the comments down below, let me know what your thoughts are on this palette, and as always, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below, and if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram account is @lethal_kitten. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and until next time.